السلام عليكم، أنا اسمي وهاب، أحب أتكلم معاكم في كل ما يتعلق في الموسيقى. فيديو اليوم نفس كل مرة راح يكون شوي مختلف. اليوم معاي ضيف في الفيديو صالح حياتي. صالح صديق قديم، أعرفه من زمان، وهو موسيقي ويدرس بعد موسيقى. ما راح أنا أعرفه زيادة، أبي هو يتكلم عن نفسه شوية ويقول لكم كل اللي تحتاجون تعرفونه.
لازم توهقني. مثل ما قال صالح حياتي. أنا طالب في قسم تأليف الموسيقى الكلاسيكية في معهد الفنون، لكن اختصاصي في الموسيقى أكثر في موسيقى الجاز وليس الموسيقى الكلاسيكية.
متى تعزف موسيقى؟
من متى؟ tough question. أقدر أقول من وأنا عمري يعني 6 سنوات.
تمام.
وأنا يعني أتعبث في الجيتار،
حلو.
بس بلشت بجدية عمري 12 سنة.
تمام.
أي.
12 سنة كان الجيتار. That's your first instrument.
Yeah.
أذكر we met بيوكي صح؟
Yeah.
أي.
We met for the first time in person at AUK.
بيوكي، وقبلها كان على الفيسبوك.
أي فيسبوك وتويتر.
أي.
أي.
You were posting a lot about guitars.
Yeah.
حلو. let's talk about guitar بالبداية. قلت إن بلشت بعمر 12 تقريبا. Like seriously about guitars.
Yeah.
What brought you to guitar? شنو الشيء اللي حببك أو جذبك حق الجيتارات؟
أكثر شيء يعني الموسيقى اللي جذبتني كانت يعني أو words are very hard. I guess تقدر تقول إن الموسيقى اللي شدتني في البداية كانت موسيقى مرتكزة أكثر شيء على آلة الجيتار. ف alternative rock metal. يعني هذه الموسيقى اللي أنا كنت أحبها وهذه الموسيقى اللي أنا كنت أبي أعزفها.
في فرق معينة؟
وايد.
شنو يعني مثلا الفرقة أو الأغنية اللي سمعتها صار فيك أبي أعزف جيتار؟ لأن أنا أذكرها كنت في الثانوية. وأذكر أدري راح تضحك.
Okay.
Avenged Sevenfold.
Okay.
أغنية
Obviously.
Bad Country.
Bad Country. Yeah, that was a good song.
قبلها كنت أعزف على الأورج وعلى البيانو شوية. classical music شوية pop music.
Okay.
بس أذكر مرة واحد من ربعي سمعني أغنية Bad Country حق Avenged Sevenfold، كانوا يعني توها نازلة الأغنية.
Yeah.
وأول ما سمعتها صار فيني صوت الجيتار هذا. This is what I want to be playing.
Okay.
هذا الشيء اللي دخلني حق الجيتار. any experience like that?
Yeah, I mean, so many. Animals as Leaders.
Animals as Leaders.
Animals as Leaders is one of those bands where I was like, that sounds, oh my God, what is that? Animals as Leaders. Avenged Sevenfold is also يعني one of the bands that like I kind of grew up listening to. And
but you still tease me about it.
yeah. I mean, all jokes aside, I think Avenged Sevenfold is it's a pretty solid band. Especially Sinister Gates, amazing guitarist. Like I'll tease you about it all the time, but you know,
you can't deny they're
good. I can't deny that they're good.
Yeah.
Lamb of God.
Lamb of God.
Yeah, Lamb of God.
That was a big band.
Yeah. They're still releasing albums, dude.
Yeah. لكن زمان عنهم أنا.
Hey. I recently started listening to them again, just because, like, you know, going to the gym and...
Like their new albums or the older?
No, the older albums.
Older albums.
No, I'm not going to touch their newer albums with, like, a 10-foot pole. I don't know, like, just the nostalgia factor.
تمام. حلو. إنزين. For how long have you been playing guitar?
Well, I stopped playing 3 years ago. No, 4 years ago now, actually. Yeah, 2016 was when I stopped.
اللي هو الوقت اللي أنت دشيت فيه المعهد عادل؟
No, أنا دشيت المعهد السنة اللي طافت.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
كأنك داش من زمان.
No.
Okay. السنة اللي طافت دشيت المعهد.
السنة اللي طافت.
أنت بلشت فيه قبل 4 سنين.
Yeah, 2016. So how old was I back then? I was 20. I was 20. I was 20 years old.
إيه.
So 8 years.
8 years.
8 years of playing
8
guitar.
years عزفت في جيتار وقطعت الحين صار لك 4 سنين.
Yes.
حولت على
Saxophone.
ساكسفون. الانتقالة هذه.
Okay, the segue.
اي
Smooth.
شلون دخلت على الساكسفون؟ شنو اللي عرفك على الساكسفون؟ ليش حبيت تتعلمه؟
So eventually يعني the more I started learning about music and music theory, I craved more, I guess يعني high IQ music
اوكي.
is like really the best way I can put it.
اوكي.
And so I started listening more to like jazz fusion.
حلو.
So people like Guthrie Govan.
تمام. بس Guthrie Govan guitar.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was like the segue, you know, like
okay.
getting into jazz fusion, listening to, you know, these jazz guitarists, I guess you could call them. Listening to Guthrie Govan, listening to bands like Stimpy Lockjaw, who
Hello.
you probably never heard of.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, like what is going on and like what are they doing? How is this making any sense? And the more I looked into the theory behind it, I was like, oh, so like jazz is a thing?
Is a thing.
And like it's pretty intense. I want to learn more. And the more and more I started listening to jazz, the more I was sort of infatuated by the other instruments in jazz ensembles. Because like I wouldn't say that the guitar doesn't have a leading role in a jazz ensemble, but not as much as like the saxophone or the trumpet.
بس شو اللي خلاك تروح حق الساكس بشكل خاص؟ يعني مثلا jazz could be anything. Could have been bass.
For sure.
You know.
Which bass was an instrument that I played.
It would have made more sense to do bass since, you know, it's a closer instrument to your guitar.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I kind of just liked the idea of the saxophone. And I was listening to a lot of saxophonists back then. You know, like I started listening to people like, well, first of all, I started listening to Snarky Puppy. That was like my introduction into like that style of music. And it was always the horn section, like the trumpets and the saxophones, that was always like, oh, that's so hype, that sounds so cool what they're doing. And then I started listening to the specific musicians in the band, like Bob Reynolds, and like people adjacent to Bob Reynolds. And so yeah, more and more I was like, God damn, saxophone's like a pretty cool instrument.
فدخلت الساكس.
Yeah.
هل كان في let's say صعوبة transitioning from guitar to sax?
Honestly,
it's a different instrument.
Yeah, it's a very different instrument.
شنو اللي يعني ما تحبطت إنه شلون انتقل من جيتار لساكس؟ It's a different thing. It's a different technique. It's a
Well, okay, so first of all, playing fast passages on the saxophone is a lot easier than playing fast passages on the guitar.
عاد توقعت أنه راح يكون عكس.
No, it's because like first of all, it's a linear or it's not really a linear instrument, meaning in like, oh man, how do I even explain this without a saxophone? So like, let's say I'm trying to descend down a scale, right? Like it's just one finger after the other.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And also the fact that I could use both hands made, you know, things a lot easier for me.
But isn't that the case with a lot of instruments? مثلا piano, guitar.
Not as much as like it's different with saxophone. Because like so with guitar, like the right hand is doing one thing while the left hand is doing one thing while the right hand is, you know,
something
like
else.
they have different functions,
Yeah.
right? Same thing with piano. One side is like dealing with the bass, while the other is dealing with the upper register. With the saxophone, it's like they're working together.
It's more fluent.
Yeah, it's I personally felt a lot more fluent on the saxophone than I did on guitar.
بس ما تحس إن الساكسفون يعني this is one of the things هذا واحد من الأشياء اللي خلاني اطلع من الجيتار. يعني I've been playing guitar for a very long time، بس إن نفس حالتك إن انتقلت لآلة جديدة. بشكل خاص رديت حقاتي القديمة.
What just happened behind shit.
اشتغلت شاشة.
Okay.
It's fine, just ignore it.
Yeah.
يعني أنا قبل لا أدش بالجيتار كنت أعزف أساساً أورج نفس ما قلت قبل شوي. فمع الوقت وقفت إني أعزف جيتار، رديت إني أعزف بيانو، خصوصاً بعد ما دشيت الكلية.
إيه أذكر.
واحد من الأشياء اللي خلاني إني أسوي هالشيء إنه بالجيتار حسيت إنه كان limiting، إنه ماني عارف أسوي شيء بروحي. إن I had to depend on other people. لازم أعتمد إنه يكون وياي فرقة أو ناس ربعي لازم أعزف وياهم. لازم مثلا في واحد يعطيني كوردات عشان أنا أعزف لحن أو vice versa. فهمت علي؟ فحسيت إن البيانو أعطاني حرية زيادة، إنه I don't need you, I don't need anybody. أنا بس أقدر أقعد بروحي، إيدي اليسار تعطيني كوردات، إيدي اليمين تعطيني لحن وكذي. Saxophone only plays one note at a time.
Well, you could play multiple notes at a time.
Okay.
Called,
so how would you do it?
It's an
But
extended.
I think it's very limiting.
Oh yeah. It's an extended technique called multiphonics. Where you can actually play two notes at the same time. Yeah, it's super ugly, but it has its uses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like في فيديو I think I showed it to you a long time ago. واحدة تغني polyphonic.
Yeah.
Is it like the same idea?
Sort of, yeah. Because like with the saxophone, like you know, it's a tube, and you're manipulating the overtones of the tube, right? So same thing with the voice. Like you can manipulate the overtones that you get out of the human voice, and yeah. So it's a similar technique.
Okay.
Yeah.
أنت الحين كشخص متخصص، تخصصك الدراسي هو تأليف الموسيقى. آلتك الأساسية ساكسفون. هل تشوف أن تعلمك على آلة البيانو اللي تعلمتها أنت في هم تخصصك، هل تشوف أن هذا شيء فادك في عملية التأليف الموسيقي؟ هل
أكيد.
أي شخص مثلا يعزف عود أو أي آلة تكون يعني one note at a time مثلا ما تقدر تعزف كوردات، هل لازم يتعلم البيانو أو أي آلة يكون مثلا كيبورد عشان يقدر يألف بطريقة زينة؟
ما في شيء اسمه، أو أنا ما أشوف إنه في شيء اسمه لازم بالموسيقى. يعني حتى مع إني أنا وايد أحب القواعد وايد أحب الهارموني وهالأشياء، ما أشوف إنه هذا الشيء لازم تتعلمه عشان تألف موسيقى. لكن هل هو مفيد؟ وايد مفيد.
هذا موضوع أنا وايد أتكلم فيه.
Okay.
بس أبي شخص ثاني يعني يشرح الشيء هذا، لأن أنت مريت بهالشيء.
أي. هو عامة يعني أنا عازف بيانو، بس أنا مو عازف شاطر.
It's not your main instrument.
It's not my main instrument. And like I'm not very good at it. But I always have like a mental image of the piano in my head when I'm writing music. Yeah. Because that's just how classical composers have been composing for the past 400 years. And it works because like you have a pretty good map of, you know, how music works. Like you can see, you know, generally how notes want to function. And like what your options are in terms of what those functions are. So yeah, I mean, like having a good idea of how the piano works and how the piano looks is extremely helpful.
هذا واحد نقطة أنت وايد حلوة قلتها، إنه يكون عندك خريطة حق الموسيقى وتشوفها قدامك. مثلا شلون النغمات
أكيد
تنتقل من مكان إلى مكان ثاني. وهذا شيء أنا when I'm composing أنا أحب أقعد قدام البيانو وأعزف النغمات كلها، حتى لو ما كانت المقطوعة كاملة على البيانو، بس أحب أسويها على البيانو. بعدين أوزع هذه النغمة تكون بيس، هذه النغمة تكون هون سيكشنز، وهذا حق مهما كانت الآلة. بس أهم شيء إنها تكون بدايتها على البيانو عشان يكون عندي خريطة نفس ما قلت، إني أشوف كل شيء قدامي. انت لما تبدي تكتب موسيقى نكون قاعدين في القهوه حاط اللابتوب قدامك على سيبليوس تقعد تكتب نغمات بدون اي آلة موسيقية قدامك، بدون اي شيء، انت بس تقعد وتكتب نغمات. شنو تشوف الفرق بين الاسلوبين هذيلا؟ شنو البروز اند كونز اوف ايتش وان؟ لان انا من نفسي نقدر نتفق ان وجودك قدام الآلة تقدر تشوف كل شيء. يعني يكون عندك visual aid besides physical memory، عندك يعني في اشياء وايد تقدر تسويها قدام الآلة نفسها لان انت قاعد تسمع الصوت دايركت. شنو فائدة انك مثلا تكون قاعد بدون آلة وبس يكون عندك قدامك شيت ميوزك ورقة وقلم، او مثلا كمبيوتر ونوتيشن سوفت وير؟
Okay, well, I guess أول شيء يعني pros of using software over an actual piano is just the convenience of it. سالفة إن like أقدر أروح أقعد بأي مكان وألف موسيقتي. That's I guess the main pro. The cons are astounding. There's so many of them. يعني and this applies more to composers without a lot of experience. Which this is not me saying that I have a lot of experience.
Okay.
I just have an amazing teacher that was able to point out to me these things and make sure that I focused on them. Shout out to Ustad Abdulaziz Shabako. خل أتكلم عن the pros of like having a piano in front of you, and I guess that sort of explains the cons of not having one in front of you. أول شيء المساحة الصوتية.
تمام.
أو مو المساحة الصوتية، إمكانيات الآلة نفسها.
إمكانيات الآلة نفسها.
In Sibelius, I can just like stack notes on top of each other without end, and the software will play it for me.
على الآلة you only have 10 fingers that you can use.
Exactly. إن شنو المسافات اللي ممكن إن عازف يعزفها، شنو الأشياء اللي معقولة أقدر أكتبها وعازف ممكن يعزف لي إياها. حق شخص ما عنده experience وايد في التأليف، هذا شيء وايد مهم إنك تعرف أنا إذا ألفت شيء هل في عازف راح يقدر يعزف لي.
هذه نقطة وايد مهمة، كنت أنا حتى راح أذكرها إنه ما تحس لما تكون قاعد تكتب قدام نوتة يكون عندك صعب إنك تعرف إذا هذا الشيء is actually physically possible.
بالنسبة لي لا. لأن أنا I have like a good mental map of the piano. I don't necessarily have to worry about that.
بس غير البيانو مثلا لو أنت you compose for classical music. فمثلا I'm pretty sure you don't, or at least you have a little bit of knowledge, but not so much about مثلا the string section. عندك الcellos, the double basses, the violins. عندك the horn section, maybe you have a little bit more experience since you're into that kind of stuff, that kind of sounds. بس ما تحس إنه لو آلات ثانية ممكن يكون عندك صعوبة فيها؟
So with strings, again, I have a mental map of how like they're played. يعني وانا قاعد ألف for strings يعني if I write a line I kind of just go okay that's how that's played, and then I'll be like okay هذا معقول. For woodwinds نفس الشيء. I have a good mental map of how woodwinds are supposed to work. And also because I've been playing woodwinds for the past 4 years, aside from saxophone, also clarinet. I kind of know what works and what doesn't. These things all come with experience more than anything. I guess it's important for, first of all, newcomers to writing music to spend some time on the piano. But eventually you want to try not to rely too much on the piano, especially if you're writing music that isn't for piano. Because while the piano has so many possibilities, it doesn't quite give you the right idea of what other instruments can do. And yeah, and also like I mean, you know how much of a fanboy I am of Jacob Collier.
Obviously.
You know, and
Who isn't?
yeah, but no, I'm his biggest fan.
Okay.
Like, and there's no denying that. You know, he also like tries to whenever he's arranging like his a cappella things. So a lot of the pieces that he wrote for a cappella he arranged on the piano. But he always says like he needs to spend more time away from the piano and try to write things based off of first of all what he knows the voice can do, and you can apply that concept to any instrument.
Any instrument,
you know?
yeah.
And that's
Okay, so you came from guitar background, so rock, metal, etc. Moved to jazz. I know you're still very into jazz.
Yeah.
بس انت your major is classical composition.
Yeah.
تأليف الكلاسيكي. On the other hand, أنا kind of started the same way.
Yeah.
Guitar, rock, metal, بس more into the classical side, and now I'm starting to find or start a journey into the jazz world. فقاعد أحاول إني أدش في الجاز ثيريز وقواعد الجاز اللي طبعا الكلاسيكال ميوزك والجاز ميوزك completely separate worlds.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the way you approach music or the way you understand music, the way you listen to music changed from delving into the classical world, coming from a jazz background?
No.
It changed nothing?
It changed nothing. It might be because I'm very hard-headed and I guess jazz theory is the only way I know how to think about music.
فتاخذ القواعد الكلاسيكية تفكر فيها من منظور جاز.
Yeah.
Can you مثلا elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, if you take like Erik Satie, for example, and you analyze his music, classical composers or classical academics would sort of first and foremost look at it from a traditional theoretical standpoint, and sort of explain things from that standpoint. I see it more from the modal aspect and modal theory. Also, like with say like polychords. It's just there's a lot of nitty-gritty that we could talk about in terms of theory and how I think about theory, and how that's different from other classical composers. But you know, like,
how do you
probably
feel...
not the topic for this video.
How do you think knowing jazz theory helped you with classical composition?
Well, I guess you could say the type of music that I end up writing is a lot more exotic, because I use weirder scales, I use weirder chords, I use weirder harmonies. But yeah, like Erik Satie has been a huge inspiration for me in terms of composition. Also, Joe Hisaishi, and so Erik Satie comes from a school of thought called Impressionist or Impressionism, and I don't really know much about the school. I'm fairly new to this style of music. But essentially, a lot of the theory that Satie used aligns with the theory that I use,
which is
modal theory.
Modal theory.
And I don't know if he necessarily thought of it the same way I do, but you know, it's the same scales, the same harmonies, and you know, I guess that sort of makes my music a little more unique than everyone else at the school.
From a classical perspective.
From a classical perspective, yeah.
Okay.
Because I hate classical and romantic music, like the eras
The
specifically.
romantic era, yeah.
Like romantic and classical, even Baroque. Like it's just so boring to me.
This is where we start to fight.
Yeah, like especially romantic music, you know, like everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's like everyone's like, oh, this is so like raw and emotional. It's like, yeah, I don't know, it feels dry to me.
But it is. That's the whole point of it.
Is it?
It is. Coming from a classical, خلينا نقول, so jazz was not a thing. Yeah, I mean, you have to have a context. Like jazz was not a thing.
It's only 100 years old now. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you listen to the Romantic era, you can't compare it to stuff which was made pretty recently.
Oh, I'm not comparing it to jazz.
Yeah.
I'm comparing it to Eric Satie, which was like, I guess, 100 years apart. Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just. Yeah, you don't.
And I'm not. Yeah, like I'm not comparing specifically. I'm just saying like, I don't prefer it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, like it just feels. First of all, very diatonic.
Not really. Kind of. Not really.
Yeah, I mean like. Yeah, it's
So
just.
the thing is with being diatonic, I think. Something really interesting that I got into a discussion a long time ago with someone about how music evolves, and he said that music is just over time it's getting simpler and simpler and simpler and simpler, and I think this is something that I think you're trying to get at. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Then with the Baroque era, we were using like polyphonic music, a lot of things. They were not diatonic because اللي هو functional harmony was not a thing technically. They were
What
using.
you mean in the Baroque era?
Yeah.
I think the Baroque era is the epitome of functional harmony.
I don't think so because they. Well, okay, yeah, sure. بس أحس
Yeah,
إن
because it's all like 1 4 5
1 4 5 1. Yeah, okay, بس
1 4 5 1 in another key.
المقصد منها إن يعني ما في how do I say this? Okay, so احنا عندنا في when we're studying مثلا tonal harmony الحين بالكلاسات that we're studying, عندك مثلا القفلات الدينية، قفلات القفلة النصفية، القفلة المفاجئة, and all of that kind of stuff.
Those Arabic names.
عندنا مثلا a map, a guideway of what to do within the scale itself.
Yeah.
صح? If you listen to Bach, if you listen to composers from the classic, the Baroque era, they were not restricted within the scale. Then the movement between the chords, yeah, sure, it's 1 5 1, but between 1 and 5, there's a whole bunch of accidentals going on, especially with.
Right.
Like counterpoint and all of that.
Yeah.
Counterpoint did not give a shit about.
Right. And counterpoint actually started off being modal, before it became tonal.
Yeah. It's not really diatonic if you want to think about it.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
Then we moved to the classical era where they started to put rules like, no, we have the 1, the 4, the 5, and this is how you move, and this is where you go, and. Then we got into the Romantic era where it got even, well, they had more freedom, but they still tried to build up on the classical guides and rules that they had in the classical era. And now we move to the, the modern era where, pop music and it's just, now it's just simply formulaic.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's turned into more of a business than an art form. And like, if you want a business to thrive, you kind of have to use a formula.
I feel like it's always been a business, though. I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, composers used to make music.
Oh, right, right. That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
So they needed to make a living.
Right.
They did not compose for the sake of composing. They made music because they have to live. They have to make music for either the church or the royal palace or whatever it is that they're doing. So I think it's always been a business, but I think I kind of get what you mean. Like now it's an actual it's an industry. It's not
an industry, right? That's the I guess the better term to use rather than a business.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? I have no idea. Just anything pre-1800s, I want to say.
Okay.
Just like, it's not my cup of tea. In terms of like orchestration, like don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's,
like I'm talking
like
about
orchestration is one thing, and then
composition.
Yeah, because like you can take a bad composition and turn it into an amazing piece just by using the power of orchestration.
Yeah, we have many examples of that.
Yeah. But yeah, anything like post 1800s is like my cup of tea. Even like people like Tchaikovsky, who like you could say that he's more of a traditionalist. In terms
from
of his,
a Russian perspective.
Yeah, from a Russian perspective, what I mean. But yeah, Tchaikovsky, I love Tchaikovsky's work. Because like his orchestration is just,
I see a lot of classical side coming out of you right now. When the jazz rock.
His orchestration is super hip. I'll use the word hip.
Okay, that's not a word we use anymore.
It's a word jazz musicians use, unironically.
Okay.
Hip. We still use cats, like we call other musicians cats. Like classical music wasn't really anything that I was attracted to, especially like towards the beginning of my music career, if you can even call it that.
Yeah. Kind of is.
But yeah, like, and it's definitely not the type of music that I'm going to be writing after I graduate. But I think there's a lot to learn from classical music.
Music. That's a very good segue. What kind of music do you think you would be doing after you graduate? And الحين أنت متخصص في التأليف الكلاسيكي بس you're into jazz and you're kind of mixing both. فشنو المنتج أو نقول الend result مالك عقب ما تتخرج you're free of إنه والله الدكتور يقول لك لا لازم تألف لي مقطوعة مثلا بالفورم الفلاني whatever. What's next?
اوكي اساسا انا يعني الشيء اللي كنت ابي من دراسه الموسيقى الكلاسيكيه هو الاوركستريشن لان
I think that's a very important point.
لان لو تقارن اوركستريشن جاز باوركستريشن موسيقى كلاسيكيه ما في مقارنه.
I think one of the biggest reasons is because correct me if I'm wrong. Jazz doesn't really give a shit about harmonic movements من ناحية within the inside of the chord itself.
Oh no, I disagree with that completely.
Really? Because I noticed like with jazz, especially because I feel like because a lot of the jazz that I listen to is based on guitars. For the movement within the chords themselves, like how the notes move from one chord to another, it's pretty it's not classical.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's the shape of the guitar is just one shape, and you're moving it around. Yeah. You're totally disregarding all of the like the tonal
voice leading specifically. Yeah, I think that's more of a limitation of the instrument rather than the medium.
The music itself,
because like if you analyze jazz big band and specifically like the saxophone sections, the saxophone soli. First of all, it's completely polyphonic. So the amount of voice leading that happens within a sax soli is just like, it's voice leading is very important in jazz music.
Yeah, obviously, but I think
movements within
voice leading is important in jazz, obviously, because one of the first time I've heard the term voice leading was within a jazz context. Actually, that's how I learned about it. But would you say it's important for the entirety of the chord?
Not necessarily.
Yeah?
Yeah. Also, like another thing, like block voicings and, moving like a chord in parallel motion is a big part of like, the jazz sound from like the 1950s.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say. With classical music, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
But, that's a big no-no for us.
Yeah, like I guess I wouldn't go as far as to say that one is more important than the other in jazz music. It's just like, yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. You can use both depending on the type of sound that you're looking for. But yeah, in general, it's more about first of all like texture and balance within like an orchestration standpoint. Classical, you know, like because classical composers have had like what at this point since the 1600s, let's say, from the 1600s until now, that's like 420 years to like really hone in the craft of orchestration. So obviously it's you know, like classical orchestration is going to be superior. So
here's something here's هني في نقطة هذه ممكن أختلف فيها شوية. It's superior in what way? لأن the way I think of jazz, and this is one of the problems, this is one of the things اللي يخليني إني قاعد أحاول أدش في الجاز شوي شوي, هو أن classical music a lot of the time it's very traditionalist. They always try to stick to what's already been done. يعني عندنا structures معروفين, عندنا أشياء, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, this is wrong, this is right. And one of the things about jazz that opened my eyes about a lot of things is that there is no right or wrong. It's just like do whatever and then explain it later.
Yeah.
You know? I think of jazz as something, I think revolutionary would be a good word for it.
Yeah.
And I think jazz is always evolving and changing.
For sure.
So I wouldn't say classical is superior. I think it's just different because eventually the way I see it is jazz is gonna evolve to a point where I don't want to say it's gonna be superior to classical.
But on the same par?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say something like that. Yeah.
Sure. I agree. But again, currently, classical orchestration is superior.
Okay.
You know, just because of the way that, like, first of all, ensembles are like very different, and so like with a bigger ensemble, you have, you know, more room to do some crazy shit, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, I don't know. It's just something about classical orchestration that always makes me go like, man, that sounds amazing. You just take the simplest melodies and make it so powerful just by like arranging the instruments in a specific way, and like having you know, two instruments working together or multiple instruments working together to create a specific texture. Like that is just, you know, like it's, yeah.
Okay.
No words.
I have no idea how I'm gonna end this conversation. We're just gonna end it. لأن لازم نطلع، احنا متأخرين الحين. أتمنى استمتعتوا في النقاش اليوم. إذا حابين أي بزيادة عندنا في القناة نتناقش في مواضيع، نكون محددين موضوع معين ونناقشه بالتفصيل. أتمنى تقولوا لي في الكومنتات. وغير هذا تبي تقول أي شيء؟
مشكورين والله يعينكم علي.
نشوفكم في الفيديو.